Welcome to Cultural Conversations. We're here at the Soho Arts Pavilion and Lounge in Wynwood, and we are joined by Dennis Scholl, who is in charge of the Vice President of Art for the Knight Foundation and an esteemed collector. So we're very fortunate to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here.
Yes. So we have the Knight's Art Challenge that is about to, or is underway right now. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, the fourth year of the Knight Arts Challenge opens February 7th, and it'll run through March 2nd. And that's the time when all of South Florida gets asked one simple question: what's your big art idea? And we've asked the community over the last 3 years, and 4,200 of them have replied. I've read each and every one of those 4,200 applications. Now, the good news is it's only 150 words maximum. So you got to have a great idea, and you've got to be able to say it succinctly and put it into the contest.
Very good. So how much money have you given out to arts, or has the Knight Foundation given out to arts organizations in South Florida? Yeah.
Well, under the contest, it was a $40 million 5-year contest. $20 million of it were grants to 3 large cultural institutions in town. We gave $10 million to the Miami Art Museum so that they could do educational programming in the new building that they've just broken ground on. We gave $5 million to MoCA as an endowment so Bonnie Clearwater can continue to do those great cutting-edge shows that she's been doing for years and years in our community. And we gave $5 million to the New World Symphony for them to do new media. And if you hung out at the New World Symphony recently, you know that new media is what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
So then the second part of the money is, in the first 3 years, we've given out $16 million to 78 winners.
Wow.
So if you've got a big idea, there are big funds available from the Knight Arts Challenge.
And a part of the program, if I'm not mistaken, is that they have to find matching funds, correct?
It is.
So what is the importance of having these arts organizations find matching funds?
Well, you know, the contest is open to anybody. It's not just for the big organizations in town. It can be for individual artists. It can be for for-profit corporations. There are folks like Sweat Records. There are folks like my boy Chris Trebet, who's going to come talk about Lego My Demo, one of my favorite projects from the first year. And sometimes that's a little intimidating for the individual artists and younger organizations. But we really did that for 2 reasons. The first one is, when the Knight money is gone and spent on the great projects that they're doing, we want them to have learned how to reach out to the community and ask for help. Teach a man to fish as opposed to giving him a fish. And the second reason is because this is a community challenge. We're not telling the community what the arts ideas are that we're willing to fund. We're asking the community to tell us what are the great arts ideas out there, and we're asking the community to partner with us in supporting them. So it works. And almost everybody has matched in some way at some point in some time. I kind of use Gene Moreno, who's a great local artist and curator, as the example. Gene sent in an idea called Name Publications. He wanted to create an artist book publishing company, which is something we didn't have down here. And we said, boy, that's a really great idea. And then we thought, but Gene Moreno, he's never had a day job. I mean, he's an artist. He goes into the studio, he writes. And yet, when we told him that he was the winner of the Knight Arts Challenge, you know what he did? Instead of going to rich patrons all over town, he asked 10 of his friends, who are wonderful visual artists, to make a work of art in an edition of 10, giving him 100 to sell. He sold them each for $250. He had a big event, gone, match raised. What's next? And what's next is 5 books by Name Publication, Gene Moreno's artist book publishing company.
Wow. So it got creative.
It works.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's interesting. Now, you obviously, outside of the Knight Foundation, you are a collector, and you're known as such, one of the primary collectors in Miami. Why don't you tell? I have a theory that Miami is in the midst of a cultural renaissance, and it's people like you and some of the other collectors, Craig Robbins and De La Cruz's and whatnot. Why don't you tell us about what's going on in Miami and what your role is in that?
Well, I've lived here for 46 years, since I was a boy. Renaissance implies that there was something before, and I can pretty much assure you that there wasn't much. It's a wonderful town, but culture really wasn't at the forefront until about the last decade. And so I always like the joke, we who have labored here in obscurity for 30 years are now finally having an incredible, incredible cultural moment. Miami has become a cultural destination. You've got the last decade of the visual arts, which include the private collections with public spaces, like world-class boxing that we have, the Dela Cruz, the Rubel, the Margulies, Craig, you know, all those people. You've got Art Basel coming, of course, which really put Miami on the map on the visual arts, but there's more than that. You have a legitimate world-class ballet company. The Miami City Ballet is world-class. If you don't have to listen to me, go read the New York Times. You know, that's kind of the paper of record for what works culturally. You have architecture. You look at 1111 Lincoln Road, and you look at Robert Winnett's new building by Herzog and de Meuron. You have the MAM breaking ground with a Herzog and de Meuron building. You have the Performing Arts Center all of a sudden beginning to program aggressively. People like Rosie Herrera getting an opportunity to be at the Arts Center. So that's pretty dynamic.
Yes.
And people are starting to focus in a lot of different ways. And this is a wave that's kind of rising up. And you know Miami, boom and bust town. I mean, we've always been that way, you know, because we've been driven by real estate and tourism primarily. But it feels like the cultural moment is not a moment anymore. It feels like it's a real maturation of us. We're kind of leaving our adolescence. We're not a teenager anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of this was started 25, 30 years ago. I mean, the ballet was just celebrated their 25th anniversary.
It's a perfect example.
Young Arts is 30 years old. So I mean, this took a lot of vision from people that were willing to take a risk 30 years ago. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, when you think about those organizations, they've had wonderful moments throughout their organizational careers. But this is really when it all comes together. You've seen this in neighborhoods when South Beach took off. You know, we're in Wynwood. Wynwood is clearly lit up right now. You get a certain critical mass, and it suddenly becomes a fait accompli. And that's what's happening with culture in Miami. There's this moment now where all cylinders are firing, and people who are international art collectors come to Miami. Now you're going to have people who are international classical music fans that have to come to Miami to see the Gehry Building, to see video along with symphony. You know, those are the kind of things that are happening. You know, if you're a ballet fan, you need to come see the Miami City Ballet. So all of the disciplines aren't advancing at the same rate of speed or at the same level, but they're all advancing.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And what drives your love of art? Why are you a collector? Why are you with the Knight Foundation? What drives you?
Well, those are two different questions. I think I've been collecting contemporary art now for 33 years. I started really when I met Deborah, my wife. We've been together for 33 years. And so it's the one thing other than Deborah that I stuck around, kind of, you know? It's the thing that I get up in the morning and I'm excited about. We're actually working into a new collection right now. We're thinking about limiting the collection again, because we had prints for a while, then we had contemporary photography, which we grew in a huge collection of that. And then when the art world got crazy, so did we, and we bought paintings and videos and sculptures. But now that everything's calmed down a little bit, we're thinking about going back to just drawings, and also we're looking very hard at Aboriginal art, because I've been going to Australia a lot for the wine. So that's on the art side. On the Knight side, I've been giving away my own money as a patron in the community for 30 years. And I thought it might be fun to try giving away somebody else's.
You're doing a good job of it.
and I'll tell you, we're giving away some Knight money. But you know, Alberto Ibargüen, the guy that gave me this opportunity, is such a cultural, you know, he's so strong about culture. He really believes that culture in a community creates engagement. That what we need to do with our arts giving is we got to weave culture into the community in a way that it becomes general, not special. That when you go to the mall, that there could be a quartet singing there, or when you're at the airport, a brass band might play. And that you think of art, you know, you think of New Orleans as a good city for that. You know, culture and New Orleans are woven together in a way that isn't, oh, I'm going to the opera, I must buy a ticket, get up and go there. Culture's everywhere. So we'd like America to begin to think that way. We'd like people to think, I'm an artist. We'd like people to think, culture is part of my everyday life. It's not a special occasion. And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, as someone who is from Miami, and who was here certainly when there was nothing going on.
And there was.
And there was, you know, what you're doing is wonderful. The grants you're giving are helping spawn new visions, which is very exciting.
You know, one of the people always ask me, what's the trick to getting a Night Arts Challenge grant? And there's no trick. It's really about momentum. When you think about particularly some of the young individual winners that have done this, they had it going on already. They got it going. It's all sweat equity. You know how these projects work. And then they came to us and said, hey, I've got this idea. I want to take this really interesting project for the community to the next level. And that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to provide fuel to that momentum.